Welcome, I'm your host, Tammy Cheney. Here, I dive deep into extraordinary journeys, OBEs, near-death awakenings, encounters with the paranormal, the unseen, unexplained, and deeply spiritual. You will hear from real people sharing raw, unfiltered stories, so settle in, get ready for a conversation that might shift your consciousness. Today's guest is Rye Voss. Welcome, Rye.
Glad to have me. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. I'd like to just start off, tell the guest a little bit about yourself.
All right. Yeah, I'm so used to being in the other seat because I host a show myself called Codega's Codex of Curiosities, where I do the same thing. I interview people with some crazy experiences, but to me, yeah, I'm a podcast host. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a beekeeper. I am a English tutor. I am a voice actor. I kind of wear many different hats. But I really enjoy the show that I host, and yeah, and I'm a lifelong experiencer of the weird and the strange and paranormal and supernatural, whatever you might want to call it. I've had a lifetime of craziness.
Wow. So I am extremely excited to find out what you're going to say tonight. I did a little investigation, and you've only given little tidbits of certain things, and it's piqued my interest. So I'm very excited about what you have today to share with the guest. So why don't you go ahead and start?
All right. Yeah. On my show, I don't really give my whole spiel about myself. I give, like you said, little tidbits here and there, but I have dropped a few, I've been on some other shows where I've given kind of like the whole meal deal, the whole package of what my life has been like. And we're going to start right at the very beginning when I was a little baby. Now, this is something that I don't remember, but I believe plays a part in my life. When I was, and I haven't gotten a real answer from my parents as the exact age I was. So it was anywhere between 6 months to 1 year. I become very sick. I wouldn't say sick, but I had an extreme fever, and they did not know how to cure it, how to do anything. It gotten to the point where the doctors are like, there's nothing we can do at this point. And so they actually called in a priest, and a priest came in, read me my last rites. So my foot was already on the other side of the spirit world. It's kind of like I'm halfway there, but I'm still halfway here. So I think that is where these experiences all kind of come from as well. It's like you're in between worlds, and I know you had said on my show where it's kind of like you need to choose a world, which really resonated with me because I haven't. I've been between worlds for all my life, and then I'm wondering if that is maybe why I run into such difficulties, because I am living both lives, like this my ego as well. Now, I'm going to fast forward to my first real incident that I kind of remember. And I brought this up when we had our conversation on my show, where I had an out-of-body experience. I was 9 years old. I was running a race with some other students, and this race was called the Canada Fitness Challenge, because I'm originally from Canada. And so I am running this race, and it's not that you're competing against other students, you're competing against set times. Now, if you can hit these certain set times, you get better levels of badges. And there's the excellence, then there's gold, then there's silver, then there's bronze. And I always wanted the excellence. I think I only got it once, but so I was running, and I was like, there was a group of kids that were just in front of me, and I'm like, I knew that I needed to pick up the pace, because that's probably the pace that I needed to hit this excellence badge. So I pushed myself beyond my normal limits. And it was exactly as I did that I shot out of my head. Okay. So I am at this point, I would say anywhere between 15 to 20, maybe even more, 30 feet above my body. I don't see my body at this time. I see all the runners in front of me, and I'm above them, and I'm looking at them running. And that's when I noticed myself still running. This event, this experience lasted maybe just a couple of seconds. But as soon as I saw myself, it was like this instantaneous right back into my body. Because it was like this realization that I'm somewhere where I shouldn't be. I'm not connected. So finished the race. The race was we're right at the end, and I finished it. And what's the first thing I do? I go and tell everyone. I'm like, oh my gosh, you'll never believe what happened. I was looking down on everybody. I was out of my body. And of course, at that point, everybody, they think you're weird. Oh, that didn't happen. You're weird. No, it didn't. So like you, I believe I shut those types of experiences off. It was kind of like I got a negative feedback from all these people, like I don't like that, so I need to turn that off. So I never did have a other out of body experience after that, which was, so it was this crazy kind of thing. And it was kind of like this beginning of me being kind of the outsider. I always had friends and whatnot, but I was still not the cool kids, never with the cool kids, because I was different. I'm sure many people can relate to being different, being weird, the weird kid. I wasn't the full weird kid, but I was halfway there. I was floating in the middle, wanted to be with the cool kids, but I was still a weird kid and just kind of right in the middle of it all. But yeah, so that was the first real kind of experience that I had that was really different. Now, I'm going to fast forward, going to jump forward here now to when I was in grade 8. Computers weren't a main thing at that time. We didn't have, at that time, we didn't have the internet. It was just a computer, right? So I was on the computer and I was typing a journal, like a diary entry, and it was later on in the evening. I wouldn't say too late, maybe somewhere between 7 or 8 o'clock. And I'm up in my parents' bedroom because that's where the computer was. It was in this dormer. There's a window that overlooked our property. And one of my responsibilities at that time was to feed the horses, to take care of the horses in the evening. My dad did it in the morning and I took care of them in the evening. So my father called up to me and he's like, have you fed the horses? And of course, being a kid in grade 8, no, I hadn't. I should have fed them when I came home from school, but I hadn't. I had other things on my mind, playing and doing other things. So I'm like, no. And so I go downstairs, get changed, and it was late fall. It might have been October around that time. So it was already dark outside when I went outside. It was a little chilly. Not that that means anything, but I was very concerned that someone of my family was going to go upstairs and read my journal, because it was my innermost thoughts. It was my sanctuary. It was, I didn't want them to know what I was writing. So I started walking down the driveway and I look up and you can see directly into my parents' bedroom where this dormer was, where the computer sat. Now, when I looked up, I could see from the shoulders up and the head of my grandma. Okay. And my grandma was alive at this time, but my grandma didn't live with us. She was about, 15, 20 miles away. So this looked identical to my grandma. And like, she has a very distinct hair, glasses, but my grandma doesn't know how to use a computer at all. And so you're trying to make sense of it at that time. And, well, it can't be my grandma. So maybe it's got to be my sisters or my mom, but it looked identical to my grandma. So I run down, feed the horses, and as I come up, I can't see anybody else in the room again, sitting at the computer at this time. So I go inside the house, and everybody is sitting downstairs watching TV. They were watching some award show. I don't know which one was on at that time, Grammys or Oscars or whatever. And I'm like, who was upstairs? Someone was upstairs on the computer. And they're like, no, none of us were. And I was like, no, positive there was someone upstairs. And they all swore, and they're like, no, they swore they didn't. They weren't swearing, they swore they didn't. And my one sister said, I had used the bathroom, but it's right here, like on the main floor. No one has gone upstairs. We've all been sitting here watching this. So at that point, I couldn't understand what I saw. It was a doppelganger of my grandma, but it wasn't my grandma because she wasn't there. It wasn't anybody in the house. And we had a lot of experiences in this one house, like my whole family, except for my one sister. My one sister, because she used to have a ton of experiences when she was younger, and like she kind of swore it all off and said, no, I don't want this anymore. And she never had any more experiences from that time. But so that was that experience. Now, a couple other, like another little thing that happened. I remember walking up the stairs one time and I had a pair of binoculars hanging from my window because we lived on a small little farm, and I would look out the window, and sometimes you could see coyotes or the fox or other type of wildlife. So I liked having them. And as I'm walking up, they're moving, they're violently flipping side to side like this on my window, like hanging from my window crank, and I'm like, what is going on? And then I had to kind of go a certain corner and then come into my bedroom. And when I did, they weren't moving again. And it was very weird. Of course, you're trying to explain these things away. You're like, well, maybe when I was walking up the stairs like this, it made it look like they were moving, and you try to rationalize. And that's one thing that, a lot of us do. We try to rationalize, like in your brain, you're like, no, that couldn't have been it. But, looking back in all these other experiences, I'm like, okay, I'm leaning more to the side of, yeah, I think that did happen. So all these experiences, there was other little experiences like this house for me was terrifying to whenever I was left home alone, like from the ages of, things were different. When you were 12 years old, you could stay at home alone by yourself many years ago. No one cared at that time. So from that age, and when I got older, whenever I was left home alone, I was terrified. I would hide in my room. I would bring all the animals in. Like we had outdoor cats and dogs. I would bring them all into my room. If I started to get hungry or thirsty, I would be like, oh my gosh, I got to leave my room. I have to go downstairs to the main floor and make something to eat. But I'm just like, it was like this, like there was this dread, and it was as if things were feeding off the fear in this house. Now I know we had different experiences with Ouija boards. So we brought in a Ouija board into our house. We went to Toys R Us and picked one up. We had a big party at my house, and my parents were gone for a couple of weeks, so we had this party at our house every other day kind of thing. So nothing per se really, like my sisters had some strange things happen with the Ouija board. I didn't really have anything too bizarre, but after that, things picked up a lot more in the house. Like the activity in the house picked up a lot more for me personally. And so fast forward to when I was about, and I don't know the age because I never wrote this down. I started writing down things that started happening to me, like maybe 15 years ago from now. That's when I started writing this all down. Like, okay, something happened this day. So I can't pinpoint the exact year it was, but I was 18. I might have been even 17 or 18. And I had come home from some friends. It was at that time where we could rent video game machines from like Blockbuster. And so my one friend had rented one, and we were playing the original PlayStation at his place, and it was amazing. And my friend had drove me home because I had to work early in the morning. And I remember standing outside and looking up, and the northern lights were out in full force. There were these green shimmering lights just dancing through the sky. I remember standing out there for a little longer because it was quite beautiful. But I went back into the house, and went into the house, and I'm like, okay, it's time to go to bed because I have to work early in the morning. And I think my mind was a little like fried from the video games because I couldn't fall asleep. I'm like, it was like this adrenaline rush. I couldn't fall asleep. So I'm just tossing and turning all night. And I kept staring at the clock and doing that thing that I used to always do. It's like, okay, if I fall asleep now, I'll have 7 hours and 20 minutes of sleep. If I fall asleep now, I'll have 6 hours and 58 minutes of sleep. And you just keep doing that. And you're like, and I get this at one point. I get this feeling, and I don't want to say it's not mind speak. It wasn't like someone was speaking to me in my mind, but it was like this sense of you need to look up. And so I roll onto my back, and I look straight up, and that's when I see this thing floating above me. It was about 3.5 feet above me. I could make out the head, the neck, the shoulders, the arms, the waist, the body, and around the waist, a little bit further past the waist. What I saw was this shadow being, okay? Pure black shadow being sucking in all the light. Like, it's dark in my room, but this was darker than dark. And around the waist area, it went into like this white wispy smoke, something like Hollywood-esque style kind of ghosts that you would believe like ghosts would look. That's where it went into white, but everything else was just blacker than black. And that upon itself is terrifying, but its eyes were a glowing red. They're glowing red, not like flashlights, but just this incandescent glow. And it was staring at me. I could see it and it could see me, and it stayed there for a couple of seconds, and I don't know precisely how long. And some people have said, oh, that was sleep paralysis. You had sleep paralysis. I'm like, no, because I wasn't sleeping, and I was able to flip over onto my back and see this. Yes, I froze because it was one of those things. It's either, fight, flight, or freeze. And for me, it was freeze. There was that saying, I'm scared stiff. Well, that was it. I was scared stiff. I stayed there, and this disappeared. And I don't know how long it was there for. It wasn't an extraordinary long time. Might have been like I said, 3 to 5 seconds. But I saw it and it disappeared, and I laid there, and I don't know for how long I laid there for. But the next thing I know, I was waking up in the morning to my alarm ringing, and I woke up and I'm like, did that really happen? Was that a dream? And again, you're questioning things. And I went downstairs to make my breakfast, and I'm like, who do I tell? Like, can I talk to anybody about this? No, at that time, I wasn't going to tell my parents. I wasn't going to tell my sisters. It was years later that I did. But even then, I'm not even sure if they, my family has had many experiences, but even then, I'm not even sure if they even fully believe what I saw. And that was, I would say, like, the defining moment for my, we all have some, it's not like we have one. We have multiple defining moments of our lives. But that was one of them. That was one where it was like, I don't like being afraid. I don't know what that was, and I want to know more. So that.
So now, with this shadow figure that you saw glowing eyes, but could you actually see facial features? It was just more like a smoke, or even a smoke, but
it was just this blackness,
solid
this darkness.
Blackness. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And you could make out the head. You can see where it kind of went in a little bit. You could see the shoulders. You could see everything defined. It would be like someone standing behind a white screen, or with a light shining behind them. You could this perfect shadow. It was a perfect shadow, but it was super black with these red glowing eyes. Yeah.
And now this happened after you started tampering with the Ouija board?
Correct.
And now, I just have to ask you, what was your experience like directly with the Ouija board? When you put your hands on it, did it take off, or did you not?
It moved all around, and enough so that nothing really stuck out to me. That is one thing I will say. Nothing stuck out to me. My sisters did have something a little freaky happening, where there was something claiming to be there and on the roof, and then there was some corresponding physical actions that or sounds and things that happened to correspond with them using it when they're in the basement, of course, using it in the basement. And there were some things that kind of occurred. Precisely what, I don't know. We had a black cat, and normally she's outside, but she was inside, and she kind of was hissing, and which it's completely strange. That never, ever, ever happens. And then the furnace kind of the flame rolled out of the furnace at one point, and then there was some noises up on the roof in the middle of the night, like something tapping on the chimney. And that's when this thing was saying that, oh, I'm here, I'm on the roof, and they heard this tapping noise. Yeah.
So now I want to go back to your grandma real quick.
Oh, for sure.
When you saw your grandma, you saw her through a window in the upstairs room.
Correct.
Now, could you see the full you saw half the body, right?
Just from the shoulder part here, just below the shoulder up. Yeah.
And it was like a crystal clear view of your grandma?
100%. 100%.
Okay. Wow.
That's why I was like, it's my grandma. Her hair was very distinct, but she was staring at the computer like this, but I was looking in from this direction here. So I was looking from the side. And so it wasn't like I was looking at her face. I was looking at the side of her face, kind of more of the side and kind of the back, because the computer was against the wall here, so it was like this person was sitting like here facing this location, and I was looking from this area, kind of thing.
Right,
If
right.
that makes
Okay.
sense. Yeah.
Wow.
So, and again, you're trying to make sense of it. So even though it looked identical to my grandma, it can't be my grandma because my grandma's not here.
I wonder if your grandma, now this is just a theory, I
Yep.
wonder if your grandma was having like an out of body experience and or maybe astro projecting, where she was in your home all of a sudden. I don't know. That's just a theory, but that's extremely fascinating.
It could be. It very much could be. It could be that. It could be another entity taking the form of someone who I know, like scanning your brain. Okay, your grandma doesn't cause you to be afraid, so I'm going to take the form of your grandma as well. Or it could be a projection of my grandma from like after she's passed, coming into the past. I don't know. Something
Wow,
as well.
yeah, that's a good that's yeah, I guess it could be any of those, but that
Any.
is
Yeah.
extremely fascinating that she was still alive and you were seeing her
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
in the
I
room.
think yeah, my belief on this was it wasn't her. It wasn't an astral projection of her. It was another entity taking her form. For me, it was not. This was not a form that would create fear. This is something that would just be more natural looking. Something that I would be friendly with.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I just had to
No,
ask a
no, no,
couple
no. Great.
questions.
I think it's great to ask questions. No, for sure. Now, I'm going to tell you something. This is one thing I don't bring up very often. Now, fast forward about a year or two. I was about 19 years old, and this is not something that I saw. Okay, but it kind of just ties into with all these feelings and the fear of this house. I was 19 years old working at a grocery store, and I had worked a little bit late. I came home and it was just after 11 o'clock, and I was fine. I was perfectly fine. And I try to go to bed, but all of a sudden I get violently sick. Like what is going on? I go to the bathroom and I throwing up. And like we're talking perfect to puking my guts out, like almost instant. And it wasn't something I ate or anything like that. It wasn't food poisoning. So I was in this bathroom, and then that's when I started getting these and again, this is the one where it's like, is it really? So I started getting these crazy thoughts inside my head, like there was this creature waiting for me just outside in the hallway, and it took the form of Nosferatu, the vampire, and it was waiting in the hallway to get me. And I'm 19 years old. I'm a young man, and I am absolutely terrified, and I cannot leave the bathroom. Okay, like I did get sick, but I'm okay now. But I am just like so absolutely scared. And this bathroom kind of has like two rooms. There's like the first you walk in and there's the sinks, and then there's a sliding door and you go into the shower and into the toilet. And I was in that one, and I had that sliding door shut, but the door that led into the where the sinks were from outside in the hallway was open, and I was like I needed to close it, but I couldn't move. Again, I was in this fear state, and I stayed there for at least an hour, at least an hour. And this was probably around like 1 in the morning or something like that, maybe even 2 in the morning. And it got to the point where I had to yell for my mom. I had to yell for my mom to come and like rescue me. I'm 19 years old. Like what the heck is going on? So yeah, so she turned on the lights, into the hallway, came in, and then she's like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And I'm like, "I'm sick." I'm sick, and so she turns on the lights, and I'm able to leave then once the lights are all on. But even still walking in that hallway was just is just this terrifying feeling. Like it was as if this entity was feeding off my fear. And the more it could scare me, the more it would, the more it would, grow in intensity. And the more it grew in intensity, the more scareder I got.
Yeah, fear definitely, or whatever that is, fear can embody many different situations, but anything in the negative energy realm definitely feeds off of our fear. And I personally have to, I mean, I've gotten so much better now just in the last 10 years, but before I went on the journey that I'm on now, that's all I walked in was fear, and I was constantly being fed off of. And so I know that, and now, I've learned the knowledge that the fear will still come in. I mean, we're human, so fear is going to come in. But when it comes in, it's like I know right then and there that I instantly need to take control of this, and I cannot let this feed off of me. And it's been wonderful to have that knowledge, and even saying it to anybody that may be somebody that struggles with fear, you don't comprehend it until you comprehend it.
It's so true. It's so true. And like I said, like that defining moment of like, what was this and what can I do about it? It pushed me onto a path, and I was born and raised Roman Catholic, but there really wasn't any answers for that. Like through that church, it wasn't like I felt comfortable approaching the priest or anything like that to talk about it. So for me, I wasn't getting any answers. It was kind of like at church was just this, like this routine you would do. Okay, go do this, go do that, go do this, these actions I was supposed to do. So at that point, then I kind of deviating and I went on my own path. I started reading. The first book I read was Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, and it changed my whole perception on what life really is, and it was really eye-opening. And then after that, it was kind of like, okay, what next? And so then I sought out. I don't know if I sought out. Yeah, I kind of like went to these meditations, and then from there I started taking Reiki. I ended up becoming a Reiki master, and through that I met this shaman. And this one shaman, she's like, I think we're supposed to work together. And so she, asked me to join, like to be taught by her, and I was like, yeah, I think this is it, and so I kind of learned from her, studied under her for about a year, and that was really enlightening. Like there was a lot of things that I did learn. It was kind of like I was able to start pushing back at this fear that was always coming and surrounding me. It was like, no, not this time, not anymore. And from there, I was introduced to this medicine woman, and she had her own sweat lodge, and I started going to that regularly, to the point that I would be helping her with her sweat lodge. I ended up a couple of times helping her set up the sweat lodge, like redoing it, bending the willow, and setting up the sweat lodge. And then I was also helping her with the, maintaining of it, and the fire as well, being a little bit of a fire keeper. So it was. And that was for about 3, maybe even 4, I would say 3-4 years I did that. And it was, again, just studying under her. And it wasn't like, yeah, you're going to be my protege or you're going to be the next in line. But it was just, we kind of fell into those rules. And to this day, she's still like my second mother. And so she's an amazing person. And I learned a lot from there. And I'll actually talk about an experience it's 2 experiences that stand out. One of them was I was in the lodge, and I saw this spirit, this entity, because you see a lot when you're in the lodges. It's completely black, it's completely dark. The temperature is extremely high, and you're working through your stuff. But sometimes, there's some spirits and entities that come to you, and one did. And one presented this symbol to me. It was kind of in a glass case. Oh, it almost looked like a lantern, which is funny because that's kind of my symbol for my podcast is this lantern. And inside of it was this symbol. And I drew it on the ground. After that round, I drew it on the ground, and I asked the medicine woman. I said, have you seen this before? And she had not. And I was like, okay, so I got to sit on this. And when I got out, I went home and I drew it in a book, and I was like, okay. And I went to Indigo or Chapters, and I was flipping through a book that had these ancient symbols and other kind of things in it. And as I'm flipping through this book, I see this symbol. I see this exact symbol that I was given, that was presented, and it's called the Indalo. And the Indalo he is the go-to man between this world and the other world, the spirit world and this world. And he has his hands out, and he's holding a like rainbow or a bridge. So he is kind of like the in-between guy who can help people whether on that side or this side, or just go from one side to the other. So it was interesting. I was like, okay. That was two times that I kind of stumbled upon the symbol. The first was when I was giving it to, the second was when I just picked up a random book and opened it up, and there it was. So
Do you know the name of the book? Do you remember the name of the book?
I don't remember it. I remember it is a big, thick red book. It was a hardcover, and I bought it, but I gave it away. But it was like, if I find it, I'll tell you. And it was like these ancient magical symbols or something like that. And so I went to this one river, and this one specific spot was my kind of my power spot, where I go and I would meditate and perform shamanic rituals and whatnot. And again, this is going to sound weird, but it is kind of like the same thing of that mind speak. I said it wasn't mind speak; it was just kind of like something speaking to me or telling me I should do something. So it kind of like I was spoken to again. It was like, you see this rock, you need to break it open. And it was a bigger rock. It was like this, and I was like, okay. So I broke it open, and inside of this rock was pretty much this symbol, about 3/4 of this symbol of the Indalo,
The same symbol?
The same symbol, yes.
Wow.
I'll share that because I took pictures of it. Of course, there is a bit of confirmation bias because, maybe I'm looking for it, but it is a little evident. Like, you can see the body where the legs are. You can see one arm. You can see a bit of the circle going up here, like the arc of the rainbow, and you can see a little bit of the head. So, it's missing the rest of the arc and the one arm as well. But it's pretty interesting. And so after that, I was like, okay, the symbol is meant to be with me. So I got it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I got it tattooed on my arm as a reminder. And I'm like, okay, so I'm the go-to person. I'm not saying I hate saying that. It's not an ego thing, but I feel like I can go from one world to the next world. I have a foot in either world. Yeah. So that was one incident that happened from the Sweat Lodge. So it was quite interesting.
So now, do you consider yourself religious, or have you broke all the way out of the church?
So at that point, yes. At that point, I was like, I'm done with church. I'm done with religion. But life has a way of changing things sometimes. Mm-hmm. So, okay. So then after that incident, there was another one where I did another Sweat Lodge, and I decided that I wanted to just follow my intuition and just drive into the mountains. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know. I'm just going to go. And then my one friend's like, hey, I'll come with you. So I was like, sure. So I just drive. We drive for a couple hours, and have no idea where I'm going. I'm just going to go here, go there, go this way. And I end up on a road, and we were going to crash in my truck for the night. I had a couple blankets. We're like, yep, we'll just spend the night, and we'll just sleep, set the seats back and just sleep under the stars. So we get out, and this is where things are really strange. So we get out of the truck, and my friend's like, aren't you afraid of of cougars, in this area, or mountain lions? Aren't you afraid of mountain lions? I'm like, mountain lions are more afraid of us than anything. They're one of the most elusive, they're extremely elusive. Any type of large cat is extremely elusive. And maybe it might be easier to see Bigfoot than it is to see a mountain lion. So we go out, and I had a little dog at that time, and I let him kind of run out, and I turn on my flashlight. And as soon as I turn on my flashlight, we're kind of by a pasture, but as soon as I do, there is a loud sound, and a loud sound of a mountain lion, like wow, like this, and we both look at each other. I ran and grabbed my dog, and we jump into the truck, and I was like that doesn't happen. I don't know what to think of that. Okay, so there's no reason that there should have been a mountain lion at that exact point that we were out, and my friend was just asking, aren't you afraid of mountain lions? He could have said bears, which is a little more common, but a mountain lion. So we're in the truck, and I was like, okay, that's just kind of strange. So we spent the night, and I go to start the truck, and the battery is completely drained out of my truck. So something has like taken all, like I didn't have the keys on or nothing. The keys were on the console, put them in, go to start it, and it's like click, click, dead. And we're in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, no.
I'm like, and how do I call someone? Because I don't know how I got here. Like, I don't know the directions to like I can retrace my steps. I can go back. Like if I'm driving, I'm like, okay, I turned here. I did this. I did that. But to tell someone how to come out to me, I have no idea. So it's like 6 a.m. And I'm like, we got to walk. We got to walk and look for something. So we start walking. And by the grace of God, we walk maybe 2 kilometers. There was a house. And I'm like, I got to go. So I go knock on the door. I'm like, excuse me, my truck's dead. Can I get a boost? And he's like, sure. So he came out, gave me a boost, and I drove home. Well, I drove back to the sweat lodge, and we kind of told the story of the stuff that happened. And the medicine woman's like, okay. And I go home. So I go home, and I'm the only one there, and I'm lying in bed because I didn't sleep well that night. So I'm like, I got to go have a nap. So I'm lying in bed reading a book, and I think I had a salt lamp. I had a salt lamp just outside in the living room, and I can see it. And it has one of those roll switches, to turn on and off. And it's on, and it turns off. Like it's like click, and it turns off. And I'm like, okay, that's strange. That's really strange. What the heck is going on? So it's kind of like all these things are accumulating. Then I'm sitting there, and I'm like, okay, I'm getting a really weird feeling. And then the painting behind my head that's hanging on the wall falls off and hits me in the head. Like, what is going on? So I call the medicine woman. I'm like, there's some weird stuff going on here. And she's like, yeah, because you brought something home with you. When you went out, you brought a hitchhiker. And she's like, why do you think your battery was drained? It was taking all the energy it could. And I was like, oh my gosh. So then I did a clearing of my house. And after I did that, it was fine. And my truck didn't have any issues anymore after that point. Though I will say that like about 3 or 4 months later, I actually had to buy a new battery for my truck. Right after I did that, I was able to start my truck, no problem. So that was quite an interesting thing something.
That is very interesting. And
Yeah.
I don't know how it is well, you're not in Canada now. But
No.
and that happened in Canada, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Well, I'm in Colorado, and mountain lions are seen a lot out here. They're not afraid of humans.
Well, I was on the Rockies, so it was the Rockies, because it's very rare. Now, if it's a bobcat or a lynx, yeah, you can see them every now and then. But a mountain lion, oh no. Yeah, crazy.
Wow. Yeah, you have had quite a journey.
Well, it starts to pick up now. Now
yeah,
things
I'm really excited. I can't wait. You've already excited me, but go ahead.
so I'm going to skip some things, some smaller kind of, because there's always something happening. There's always, shadows. There's always something. I see something, like I see more shadow beings, but nothing like I had seen when I was 19. But fast forward now to I believe it was 2014 or 2015. I was in Chihuahua, Mexico, which is northern Mexico bordering Texas. And I was in the parking lot of this grocery store, and I'm walking out to my car, and that's when I again get this, like, not a voice, but kind of something telling you need to look up. So I look up, and floating above me, and I can't tell you the distance because it's so difficult to say. Like, was it much closer? Was it much farther? I don't know. But it was fairly close. It was this white... And if I say cloud, people are be like, okay, that's crazy. But it was this white plasma cloud that was above me that was moving all around in an erratic fashion. Like, it was changing shapes, constant modulating and changing. And there was no clouds in the sky. I just want to be clear. There's no clouds in the sky except for this one white thing above me. And it's moving left, up, down, to the right, all over the place. Okay? And it's kind of moving maybe like 50 feet or it could be. Like, if it was way up in the air, it's moving 50 feet. But if it's closer, it would only be moving even less. But it was just moving all around and undulating and just changing shape continuously. And I am staring at this. And at that time, I had a Samsung Galaxy S3. And when I tried videoing it at that time, it would not take the video. Like I couldn't see it. There was no way I could get a video. So what could I do? Well, I'm like, well, I'll call my wife. So I called my wife at that time, and I was like, you'll never believe what I'm seeing. I'm in the parking lot here at Soriana, and I'm seeing this thing above me. And then I noticed off to the far left, there is two small, and these were far away, two small black triangular craft. And they're on an intersect course for one another. So they're kind of flying like this. And then over here is this white cloud thing, but it was solid. It wasn't like, it was a really solid cloud if it was a cloud. But I would say it's a plasma cloud is what my best guess. And I'm kind of like looking here, and I missed the point where these two things intersect. I missed that. But when I look back, it looks as if there's just one now, a black triangular craft. Maybe kind of the edge wings are not like sharp, they're a little rounded, and I can just see it flying over the horizon. And this is all going on in the middle of the parking lot, in the middle of the day, around 11 or 12, and there's people walking around, and I'm looking up, and no one else is. And this cloud thing lasted for maybe about 3 or 4 minutes, but this other thing just took its time leisurely across the horizon. And in total, it was about 12 or 13 minutes of watching all of this unfold in front of me.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I came back later with my good camera, and I took some pictures of the location and kind of like did a little bit of a diagram so that I wouldn't forget. You know, it's like, okay, that's where these ones came. They went over, they flew like this. This is where this white plasma cloud I saw flying all around. Now, I had never seen anything else like it before until I stumbled upon a video. There was a gentleman, he's called the Renaissance Man, and someone had sent him this video of this plasma cloud. And the only difference between my plasma cloud and this one was a little more see-through, whereas mine it looked more solid. And it is this cloud kind of changing and moving all around, and it's moving rapidly. And then also in this picture, at one point, there is a black small craft flying through as well. It's like through the same thing. And I was like, because he's like, oh, what was that? Let's look that down. Let's slow this down. I'm like, oh, there's a black triangular craft or a black, something else flying through. And I'm like, oh my God, this is pretty close to what I had seen. So it was really, really interesting.
I love when see, say, another interview or somebody speaking about experiences that they've had, and they have had experiences exactly the same as me, and they even word it exactly like me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's when I knew things were real. I mean, there were so many things that really made it real for me. And but when somebody describes something word for word exactly the way that I do, I'm like, wow, they've been to the same place that I've been. But yeah, yes. I love when we get others
like
that have experienced. Yes.
Yeah, because as usual, we still question ourselves. We still question, like, did I really see that? Was it something else? Maybe it was this. Maybe it was that. And we ask ourselves these questions all the time. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's really interesting to get someone else to be able to be like, I'm not as insane as I think I am.
Well, for me, I never questioned anything because I had experienced things, my whole life. And so that was more real to me than this. Mm-hmm. But for the sanity's sake, that's what made it more real for me. Okay, I'm not crazy. Those things really happen.
Yes, exactly. That 100%. It's exactly how I see it as well. And then I will say, like once COVID all started and things like that, that was a turning point for me to start turning back towards not the church, but because there is so much information in there, and it's been proven. A lot of it has been proven, but it's fascinating to hear the stories. And when you start looking deeper into these stories, you're like, holy cow, this was one crazy ass world. And so when you were asking, like, oh, did you totally abandon the church? I kind of did, but I kind of see myself starting to come back. But it's approaching things differently now. And it's kind of like it's on my terms. And the church is maybe just a facilitator. It's not that it like I don't need a guy to be like my connection to God. I don't need to go. I can do that myself. And I'll go there because I feel that a place of worship has concentrated energy, and it's maybe it can raise the vibrations, and that might be a better place to go. But as soon as they start doing like some crazy stuff and they start like demanding money and things like that, and I understand that they do need some money for operating costs. That's a given. Fair enough. But when it's other things, I'm like, no, I'm out. It's some crazy kind of stuff. Like, no, I'm good. But
Right.
yeah, so that's where that all went. So I'm still slowly on this path. I'm on this path of rediscovery, we would say. But I had some friends. I had a friend come here and stay with me a couple of years ago, and he had gone back, and he was going through some hard times, and he asked me to call him, and I'm like, sure. And when I make phone calls to someone, I like to remove all distraction, because I got ADD really bad, and I get distracted. So I'm like, I'm going to go on my rooftop. We have a rooftop patio. I'm going to go on the rooftop and sit up there and talk to him, so I won't be distracted. So I give him as much of the attention as I can. But as I was exiting to go out onto the patio, again, I get this little voice. And again, it's not a voice, just this like, you need to keep your eye on this one specific part of the night sky. Like, just look here. Like, okay. So I sit down and I'm talking with my friend, and I'm looking at this one specific spot that I was told to look at. And sure enough, there's a light that's coming out, and it's getting brighter and brighter. And there are airplanes around here. I'm like, okay, that's probably an airplane. But the light then splits off into two lights, and it does like this almond type of elliptical kind of pattern, and then it comes back, and then they join back up again. And again, I'm on the phone talking with someone as I'm seeing like some sort of UFO of sorts. And I'm like, you never believe what I'm seeing. So I'm telling him everything I'm seeing. And then the light it shifts directions, and then it disappears. It just blinks out. And I'm like, wow, okay. And so I don't take my eyes away from that spot. And about 20 seconds later, there is in that little section, like when we see a shooting star, it's kind of like, like through the whole sky. There was a tiny little section. It was like a shooting star, and it was instantly disappeared as well. It was as if something hit light speed and took off from our world. It was in that exact spot that I was looking, and it was like, okay. And do I know what it was? No, I don't. But it was an experience that I was told to keep an eye out for in that one direction, and that is what I saw.
Wow.
Yeah, so those are some of the experiences, and I haven't been really afraid of many of these experiences. I find them very intriguing, very interesting, ever since those kind of when I was younger. But that takes us to last year, okay? Now, last year I had an experience that I cannot explain. There is a way to explain away part of it, but the people explained it away saying, oh, it's this. But they only explained half of it, but they never explained the other half of it. So what happened was last August, I drove to a grocery store, a local grocery store that was really close to my house. And I'm about to get out of the car, but my vision starts messing up, like very badly. I start seeing these intense bright lights, like kind of like behind you, like the fuchsia, the yellow, the oranges, kind of, but they're all mixing together. It would be as if you stared at the sun for a couple of minutes, and then you looked around and you get these tracers, like these really intense like lights in your vision. But they started to form something, but I couldn't see. I couldn't see past them. I could see around them. And I'm like, what is going on? And I'm starting to get worried. I'm getting a little nauseous, not because it's just because it's really messing with my vision. I'm like, what is going on? So I go into this grocery store because I needed to get my bacon and cheese at the deli, because this place has like the cheapest bacon and cheese. So I go and I'm walking, but 50% of my vision is obscured. And what it starts to form is kind of like a triangular shape. It kind of goes up like this, and then from this point over here, it's going down like this, okay? And the lines are these really intense colors. It's like this, it's just rolling over on itself, going over and over, and they are changing, just morphing into other different colors. And this is where some people have tried to explain it away, because I posted this on Reddit, this experience, and they're like, oh, that's an ocular migraine. Okay, an ocular migraine is when you kind of see colors and that's it. And there's no explanation for an ocular migraine. They try to say, well, it could be from, this or that or this or that, and there's no pain associated with ocular migraines. It's just like, well, it could be stress, it could be dehydration, it could be. They try to explain it away, but there's no real reason as to why you get these ocular migraines, and. So I'm okay to say, well, maybe that was an ocular migraine to that point. Okay. Now it's what happens after now, because what has happened in my best explanation is a portal has opened in front of me, a rip in our reality, because I can see through this. Okay. So I see through to another world on the other side. Now, this world is a post-apocalyptic style type of world.
Wow.
On my left-hand side, I can see like these kind of, it's as if I'm in a warehouse and I'm looking kind of out this way. Now I can see a wall of cinder block walls, like a cinder blocks on this side, which is a wall on this side. The floor is strewn with like rubble, like maybe older cinder blocks that were broken and kind of like have been weathered a bit because they're a little bit round. But they weren't like round stones or anything. And on the right hand side, I can see like part of a wall right here, but the rest in front of me is blown out. It's gone. The roof on this side is gone. There's a kind of like a steel type of roof on this side. Now, way further in the distance, maybe like 200 feet, maybe 200 feet, we'll say, I can see these extremely large industrial style fans. They're in box shape, but they're, big, huge blades that are slowly turning. There's cross-member wires, kind of like protection kind of wires in them, and they're turning in a counterclockwise manner. And that's something I remembered because I know from the native teachings that counterclockwise is contrary. Like the life and the respect and everything should always be working in a clockwise manner, not counterclockwise. So I made a note of that. I was like, okay, that's very strange. The sky was this, and I need to clear this, is that all the colors were like a rusty brown. Everything was brown and kind of like this rusty color. Everything. The sky had these fast-moving clouds that were just flying by like this. Of course, they had like their whitish because it was as if the sun was hidden behind them. But they were also had this rusty brownish color to them as well, and they were just flying by. And I'm standing in line to get my stuff, and I'm sitting there. And so I decide, I'm like, is it this eye? So I close this eye. I'm like, okay, no, I can still see it. I'm like, is it this eye? I'm like, no, I can still see it. I didn't do both eyes though. I didn't close both eyes, but I was testing it out to see like, okay, I need to see if I can still see this. And I can. And so, but I'm still trying to operate a normal life, and I buy my bacon or I order my bacon and my cheese, and I go to the till and I pay for it, and I'm still seeing this. I will say though that my fixed point was I was fixed. So no matter where I turned, I still saw that same image in front of me. It wasn't static. Things were moving, right? Like things were still moving, but I was stuck looking at one point and looking out. And so I got into the car, which some people are like, I can't believe you drove. And I went into the bedroom and I told my wife, and I said, I have a headache. I need to lie down. And I was going to take some Advil, but I'm like, no, I don't. I shouldn't do that. I'm just going to lay down. And I actually prayed. At that point, I prayed, and I prayed to have this removed, taken away. And it was within a minute, it was gone, and my vision was back to normal.
Wow. What an definite. You had to have been seeing it through like a portal hole.
Yes.
To see something like that. And then did it look like something that could have been like futuristic or something in the past?
So that's what a lot of people have asked. They're like, not in the past, but in the futuristic. Does this look like something that could happen? My personal, and again, like this is just an opinion because there's no real right or wrong on this because we don't know. My personal belief is I saw to the other side where the demons inhabit. Okay, that's what it's like. Hell, their thirst can't be quenched, their hunger can't be satisfied, and they're stuck there. And that is why they come over to possess us, so that they can experience our worldly, the beauty of our world. The food, the hunger, the thirst. They can drink, the sex, everything. They can participate in all that. But in this other world, they cannot, and they are stuck there in this. That is what I believe I saw. And now I have talked to a couple other people who've had some similar. Batman was walking in the same world. It was this post-apocalyptic style world. He says that there is the sign hanging from like a chain and is creaking back and forth. There is another gentleman who, he was on the show, one of my favorite shows, The Confessionals. He saw through a portal himself, and he saw what looked to be a post-apocalyptic world with a twisted tree, like a vortex would do that. And then another gentleman I talked to as well, he talks about that he had an experience in this type of world. It was a sepia, like everything was like this brownish colors, and he saw like a snake and a scorpion in that world. And so so when you start hearing other people talk about it, it starts giving it more credence. And like I said, it might have been an ocular migraine, but I saw through it. There was something there, so I'm wondering if ocular migraines are perhaps still happens. And it wasn't like I was seeing it in my mind's eye. It wasn't like, oh, this is a vision I'm seeing. No, this is what I saw. And I used AI to create, as best as I could, kind of the scene that I saw. And I'll share that with you. I'll send you the videos on through Facebook that you can see them.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. So now, had you ever had an ocular migraine before, or?
Never before.
So normally, in people that have ocular migraines, if they start, they continue to happen, or it's something that you've already been having. It's not a one-time deal.
Yeah, and I have had migraines. I've had migraines before. Like it kind of runs in my family, and it's not like I have them all the time. Maybe in a year I might have 1 or 2 migraines. And I know the difference because they're extremely painful, and you can't really use your eyes or anything. And this was completely different. There was no pain or anything. It was just very, very different.
Wow. So what a fascinating journey you've been on since a young childhood. I mean, so I know that you've started your own podcast and you interview many fascinating stories. Is that your experiences? Is that what led you to just go right into, let's talk about this,
Well, personally, myself, my experiences led me to wanting to hear more about other people's experiences, because I'm like, when you start piecing things together, you start to realize that you're not that insane. You're like, okay, like you're getting all these information. So it was just me listening to the stories because I found them so intriguing. And I'll say that actually it was kind of maybe a bit of a selfish reason why I created a podcast, because I'm like, I love listening to people tell their stories. I'm like, well, why can't they tell me? Why can't I listen? Why tell me directly? So that was one of the main reasons. Then it started to expand that, that was one of the main reasons I really wanted to hear people's stories. But then I was like, well, I would love for them to have a place to tell them, but I would also like to try to get answers. And it's like, okay, so we can piece these things together, and you start seeing that there are some similarities between some obscure interview that I did with another obscure interview, and you're like, okay, these are connected. And you start to learn that more and more it's all connected. It's not just like, oh, I had a Bigfoot experience, oh, I had a UFO experience, oh, I had an out-of-body experience. No, they're all little puzzles, but they're all little puzzles of a bigger puzzle where it's all one big thing. Everything is connected.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay, so I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this up, because we've been going on for a little over an hour now.
Yes.
But I want you to tell everybody where they can find you again. Let them know about your podcast and where they can find you.
For sure. Yeah, you can find me, again, the podcast name is Codega's Codex of Curiosities. And Codega, that itself is a name. And if you listen to the podcast, you'll find out what a Codega is. But I can be found on YouTube, Rumble, Apple, Spotify, all the above. That's about it. And on Facebook and Instagram, if you want to message me, by all means.
Perfect. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Your words of encouragement mean a lot, not just to me, but especially to our guests who share their deep personal experiences. These are real people and they do read your comments. The best way to support the podcast is simply and free. Like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, stay curious and stay conscious. Have a wonderful night.